What? Ew. Stop that shit. Cut it out. It's okay. They were psychotic pyromaniacs and they must not be allowed to breed. Far Cry Primal is pretty good. The newest entry from Ubisoft Montreal takes the series back to the Stone Age in what is an admirable attempt to prevent stagnation. One only has to look through the recent Ubisoft library to see evidence of that rotting out the entire tree. So does it succeed? In a few areas, definitely. But on the whole, I'd say no. Getting into presentation, it's what you'd expect. It looks about on par with Far Cry 4. While looking stellar in some areas, with exceptional lighting and overall art direction, at other times, ugly textures or just plain dull level design bring it down. Character models and animations are all pretty fantastic. Animals are hit and miss, and environments, as previously stated, are all over the place. At times, water and fire look fantastic, but other instances are almost laughable for a AAA title. On the whole, I'd say visuals are good. Sound is pretty exceptional on the other hand, though at times a little jarring. For example, the animal skinning sound. Yeesh. Other than that, things sound awesome. The sound genuinely brings this world to life in the best ways possible. You'd think they actually recorded a saber-toothed tiger. Voice acting is top-notch. The primitive languages created for the game are executed by the majority of the cast in a highly believable fashion. Except Urki, the representation of Far Cry regular Herc. He's very misplaced.
Trash! Oh, past the mask and now we're fattest!
The soundtrack features the expected tribal drumming and yells, but certainly keeps the tension high during big fights. Oh, and what fights they are! Gameplay is where Far Cry Primal both excels and stumbles. Taking the game back to the time of primitive man obviously changes things significantly from its predecessors, all of which focus on gunplay. In Primal, we have to work with simple tools: clubs, single and two-handed, a variety of bows, spears, traps, throwing knives made of rock and bone, a sling, and a variety of very satisfying bombs, including what might be one of my favorite weapons in a video game ever, B-bombs. Fuck yes. Awesome. Anyway, these tools combined form a very cool arsenal, one that is an incredible amount of fun to use. You also have to continue crafting these weapons from resources throughout the environment, really emphasizing the survival aspect of the game's setting. In addition to this primitive slate of weaponry, you are able to tame a roster of beasts to do your bidding. Lions, tigers, and bears, and badgers. You initially start with an owl, which serves as a replacement to the camera from previous entries. The biggest difference is that the owl can kill people and drop bombs. Each animal has its own stats and specialties to cater to your combat needs, be it a stealthier approach or a full-blown assault. You can eventually even ride some of your larger creatures, as well as smaller mammoths. There's a bigger emphasis on hunting this time around, again due in large part to the setting. And this opens us up to talk about the crafting system. Love it! Love everything about it. It's far better laid out, and there's a lot more challenge to getting certain upgrades thanks in part to rare materials. Not to mention the sheer amount of upgrades will keep you killing beasties for a good portion of the game. These upgrades are joined by a very similar system for upgrading your tribal village, using the same resources to build nicer huts for your key denizens. You also need to accumulate population, which you receive for completing various side quests and random events throughout the world. The village upgrade system then in turn unlocks higher level skills in your skill upgrade menu. The skill types are broken into trees, represented again by your village's key denizens. Gathering, beast mastery, bombs, weaponry, etc. The skill tree is vast, and packed with the standard health and item upgrades, takedowns, crafting improvements, the works. This is by far the best skills and upgrades have been in a Far Cry game. The systems all feed into each other and feel like a far more cohesive whole than ever before. It's a joy whenever you get to make your character more powerful. However, even with all this great new stuff that actually changes the core gameplay enough to feel fresh, it's still a Far Cry game. It still feels like Far Cry 3, 4, and Blood Dragon on its base level. The majority of your 20 to 25 hours are spent doing mostly the same stuff. Get quest, go to quest marker, kill people or animals, capture outposts and bonfires, collect resources from hunting and gathering, scrounge up collectibles, rinse, and repeat. The AI and difficulty haven't really moved anywhere either. The sense of verticality remains from Far Cry 4, but the only real means of vertical travel is the incredibly out-of-place grappling hook, making a return from previous entries. Without the gyrocopter, you spend a lot of time using the futuristic tool to climb or looking for paths you and your animals can run or vault up. This brings us to Far Cry Primal's narrative. You play as Takar, a member of the Wenja tribe. During a long journey to find the remainder of your people in the land of Oros, somewhere in Central Europe according to Ubisoft, your hunting party is attacked by a saber-toothed tiger while attempting to prevent themselves from starving. Everyone but Takar is killed by the beast, and he must quickly gather supplies to start a fire and eat before nightfall. Immediately, the game sets up how harsh the setting is, and I love that. You soon meet Sayla, a gatherer and supposed last member of a tribe of Wenja, and save her from the same fucking tiger. I would like to mention you get to tame this creature later, and it's awesome. Being the only two members left of your tribe, you set out to find other Wenja throughout Oros who have gone into hiding. You quickly learn that the north is controlled by the Udam, a tribe of cannibalistic Neanderthals who specialize in brute force and poisons, and their crazed leader Ul. In the south, you're faced with the threat of the Azila, controlled by the sun-daughter Batari. They specialize in all things fire. The two sick assholes I killed at the start of this video hail from this tribe. Takar also learns that he is destined to become the Beastmaster, and be the first human to tame wild animals to his will. This obviously makes him the Wenja leader, or at least the one fated to save the tribe from extinction. So the game is spent building the strength of your people by finding other leaders and saving other Wenja. This all sounds good on paper, but the narrative is pretty paper thin. You're given all the context, sure, and I even have to appreciate a game that focuses on its gameplay way over its narrative, but there isn't even a satisfying conclusion. I'm not spoiling anything by telling you that you kill the two antagonists and make your tribe the strongest in Oros. I'm not spoiling anything by telling you that the final boss fights are just damage sponges with a ton of additional enemies to get in the way. You're handed the entire narrative at the start, you see where the road is taking you, you're just meant to enjoy the ride. And while I'm not saying I hated my time with Primal, I am saying it had a weak narrative that didn't take as much advantage of the setting as the gameplay. This game just feels alright. It's good in most areas, even great at times. The gameplay is instantly recognizable, but spins Far Cry enough on its head to deliver a genuinely fresh experience to a series that was beginning to fatigue. It even refines some mechanics to the best point they've ever been at. I'll even give Ubisoft major points for not having a season pass attached to this thing on day one. I'm just disappointed in the story aspects, and I personally think I'm worn out on this franchise. Ubisoft Montreal has provided a very good game with a premise that I found impossible to resist, but I think they've only prolonged the inevitable. It is admirable that they tried something even more different from Blood Dragon. It just feels a bit too familiar to genuinely feel new. It's not a step forward, it's a step to the side. Far Cry 5, which I assume will be the next entry, is really going to have to be different. Otherwise the task falls to the next spin-off. And if they both continue to copy and paste the base mechanics from Far Cry 3, the series is only going to get stale and follow in the footsteps of Assassin's Creed.